actually be using a sketch called Bottom View, Draw Here, but we're going to be recreating the top view design on your paper drawing. So let's go ahead and double click on Bottom View, and you'll see that sometimes funny things happen when we click on views. Some of you may have noticed your view just completely zoomed out. You may have to zoom back in by rolling your mouse button. Mine actually is working the way it should work. But we're going to move forward here, and the first thing we notice is that says bottom view, but that says top. So let's go ahead and change this, and you're going to probably see this act a little funny right here. I'm going to click this once. There it goes. And I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to click this button again, either this button here or this button here. And now it says bottom view. So once again, as I just mentioned, you may have to roll your mouse wheel to really get that view back in place. Now, a few things as we've seen before with our front view. We have the red construction line indicating the CO2 cartridge safety zone thickness. So you may draw along that that red dashed line. We also have, once again, the minimum amount of material on the axles. This is actually referencing the axle hole. This line here and this line here are 6 millimeters away from this center line, which is the center of the axle hole. So you cannot draw through this region here, and you see the same thing on the front. These dark black lines here are very important. We're going to talk about these when we start drawing the bottom, also known as the top view of your car. We'll come back to those in a minute. So to get started, let's do this. Line tool. Let's now click on construction again. We're actually going to reference once again the front of your car body. This is actually the point which references it, but sometimes it's hard to stop exactly at the length of your car. So let's draw this construction line as we did before. You can draw directly on that, does not matter. I'm just going to draw a vertical line. And I'm going to go ahead once again and use the dimension tool to put this at the length of my car, which is DB2. So I'm going to click once. I'm going to click anywhere on the back of the car a second time. I'm going to move away from the drawing, click a third time. My car body is 220, which in this case is, as you'll see, it's where it lines up on that black square, but this is much more accurate, much easier to work with. Something else I like to do, I'm going to keep construction lines selected. I'm going to make another construction line. I'm going to click just above the symmetry line. So remember, we're only drawing half the car, the upper half. Once it's approved, we'll get it mirrored to replicate it and make the other half a reflection of it. So I'm going to go ahead and just draw a construction line just above it from here and stop at the front of my car body. And this line out that I'm going to dimension is actually the body thickness. It's the minimum thickness of your car between your front and back axles. My car has a total minimum thickness of 14, meaning the thinnest part of my car between the back and front axle is 14 millimeters. So since I'm drawing half of the car body, I'm going to make this 7 millimeters away from the center of my car. So it's going to make more sense when you watch me complete my car. So I'm going to click once here, click a second time here. So I clicked on those two construction lines. I like to move out of the drawing. I'm going to click a third time somewhere over here. And once again, my car has a thickness of 14 between the front and back axle, but since I'm drawing half of it, I'm going to put a number of 7. Once again, it'll make a little bit more sense as we draw. So I'm going to go ahead and turn construction line off. My car starts with a line tool here. I'm going to zoom in. This is usually the first line I like to draw. I like to start right where the symmetry line meets the back of my car. Remember, we have to always make a complete outline. So I'm going to go all the way up, and I'm going to stop here. Now, I know that this black line here, right underneath my mouse, is actually where I had drawn the edge of my car body in the front view, and I can see it stops right here. Now, this is fine because you'll see I'm outside, if not on, that line right there, that construction line. So this is legal to do. My car then comes down at an angle like this. And as you can see here, I can keep going and I can hit that construction line. And I know I didn't draw too far or too close to the symmetry line. So this is why this reference line is important for me. I also know I cannot draw through that CO2 cartridge housing. That right there would be unacceptable. But I can touch the edge of it, as you can see. And I'm going to stop right about here. Click. I'm going to keep moving forward. So I'm going to click again. And you can once again see that black line. That's the edge of my car body. So I am going to stop, according to my design, I'm going to stop roughly about here. And I use an arc on my drawing. So I click once, twice, and I'm going to put a little bit of a bend in that arc. And I'm going to come over here to the front. And once again, this is where things could change. You do see this black line here, but I can change things. I don't always have to use that as a reference. I'm actually going to make my car a little different here. I'm going to start here, and you'll make more sense of this when you look at your top view, how you kind of need to draw this. So I'm going to go right about here. I'm going to put a nice little bend in that, make my car nice and aerodynamic in the front. Now keep in mind, I have a nice outline. I went up, over, down. I'm going to make sure I did not go through that CO2 cartridge housing. I can see that I'm at least 7 millimeters away, and I know that for a fact, so I put a construction line there. A nice bend, I'm going over, and then I'm rounding out the front. Now, I like to have take this opportunity to have your teacher check to make sure it's done correctly, it meets specifications, and now you can mirror. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and mirror. So we're going to click on the mirror tool. The mirror tool, as you'll see, it's right here at the top. And the first thing it wants to know is, what do you want to mirror? So I'm going to move just up and over to the left. I'm going to click and hold down my mouse button. I'm going to drag my mouse, put a box over the upper half of my top view, even though it's being drawn on the bottom view sketch. I now need to indicate a mirror line. I'm going to click here. The mirror line is this symmetry line that we've drawn for you. Click on it. A lot of times students will get confused because nothing happens. Okay, so let's hit apply. There it is. And now let's hit done. Excellent. Now we're going to go ahead and check a few things here so I can do as I've done before. Dimension tool works really well in this view. I can make sure that if I click once, click twice, this should be a bare minimum. As you can see, there are 14. So that's how that construction line really helped me out. Something else students can do is they can check that from here to now here. I kind of changed my design a little bit. That should be at least 12 millimeters, which it is. So I'm going to hit my escape key. Don't want to keep these dimensions. I'm just checking my work. Now you'll notice there's a black line here, and then I angle in. I'm not seeing anything here, so we sometimes have to be careful. It might be how something was selected, or it's possibly the fact that this is not an issue, but your teacher might tell you to click on the line tool. And if you don't see a complete outline of your car, you might want to take a moment to just do this. I'm going to click here. I'm going to click here. So I'm just going to add an object line like I have here, and I'm going to replicate that here on the front. Once again, we may or may not have had to do that, but it sometimes becomes an issue later when we try to do some extrusion that this is not working. So as you can see here, I have a complete outline of my car. I can hit finish sketch, and it's hard to really see what's happening here because I have a front view, and if I hold down and rotate the model, I can actually start to take a look at, oops, what's happening here. As you can see, things are going a little crazy, but I can actually take a look at this from many different perspectives and just kind of make sure that things are working correctly. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the bottom. Here we go. Let me just zoom in here one more time. There it is. Let me zoom in on the bottom, and let me kind of show you something you can check before we move to the next step. If you click on extrude, we talked about this earlier, you should be able to notice that certain things should highlight and some things should not highlight. I'm on my bottom view here, and I'm just kind of taking a look around, and I'm noticing, there we go, that right there is selected. This right here is working, but you'll notice that I'm not able to select anything to extrude. So I have a problem. So let's hit cancel, and I know what the solution is. I'm going to hit bottom view, and it's playing nice now. And if you recall, we did have this line here, but for some reason it's not working. So I'm going to redraw that line. I'm actually going to draw a line from here to here, and I think it's because it sees it in the front view, but because we didn't draw it in the bottom view, it's just not working the way we want to work. So let's just see if I can prove a point. I redrew lines that we thought were actually there, but they were in the front view. So let's hit finish sketch. Now let's hit extrude now. And there it is. So now you can see that this is now being selected, and I could actually at some point complete this drawing. So you might have to add some additional object lines if you're noticing this does not want to be selected in the extrusion option. Now, this is just to check my work, so I'm going to hit cancel. I'm going to go ahead and hit the home button. Things get really crazy here, so I'm going to kind of zoom in again. I'm going to save my work one last time before I do the last and final step, which is to extrude and create an orthographic drawing.